Hello, everyone, and thank you for listening to Retold, a Harry Potter podcast. This is a show for Potter fans of all sorts to tune in and have fun living in the wizarding world just a little more. My name is Barry, and every week I sit down with a new guest host and we go through the Harry Potter books 2 chapters at a time. We also have some fun segments filled with trivia, deep lore, movie changes, and favorite lines. And at the very end of the episode, we have a spoiler section called the Restricted Section. Ooh. This week, we'll be covering chapters 7 and 8 of the Chamber of Secrets, and I'm joined by returning guest John from the First Time Readers podcast. He also has a YouTube channel called First Timers, where he makes a bunch of cool Lord of the Rings content as he goes through those books for the first time. So if you're into that, check that out. House elf keeping things for this week as we dive into this chapter. Listen, I tried really hard to remember to do the Quizzitch updates during the episodes, and I was so sure that I was going to. But it turns out I usually forgot. So from here on out, you'll hear me chime back in with the current score and your question for the week. One slight correction is that as far as Quizzitch goes, I say that I am behind at the start of the Quizzitch section this week. That's actually not true. Before John and I showdown this week, the score is actually 5-4. So right now, as you're listening, it's 5-4. I am up by 1, and we will see in what way that changes in this episode. The other thing I wanted to mention is that in this episode, there is a character whose name I mispronounce horribly, and I want to correct it here before anyone comes after me for it. But for some reason, when I read the name Gladys Gudgeon, my brain did not process that is how Gladys is spelled, and I said Gladys instead. I know, foolish mistake. I repent. All right, so don't come after me. Anyway, as always, please rate and review the show if you can. That helps me out a lot. And share it with all your Potter friends. And feel free to reach out to me if you want. You can send me a comment, owl post, or howler by emailing me at theretoldpodcast@gmail.com. Or you can send me a message on Instagram at theretoldpodcast. Anyway, that's all. So time for the episode. Enjoy.
1, 2, 3. Expelliarmus!
I'll be in my bedroom, making no noise and pretending that I don't exist.
Oh dear, we are in trouble.
Where have you been? You shall not harm Harry Potter. 50 points and it goes to her head.
I strongly recommend caution.
Scared Potter.
You wish.
I didn't know you could read.
Welcome back, everybody, to Retold, the podcast where I retell you my favorite story of all time, Harry Potter. This week, we'll be talking about Chapter 7, Mudbloods and Murmurs, and Chapter 8. John, what's the name of Chapter 8?
Death Day Party.
Death Day Party.
I was going to say Mudblood and Murmurs.
Yeah. And as you can already tell, with me today, I have John from the First Timers and First Time Readers. Which one?
Yeah.
Is it both, I guess?
It's both. It just transitions depending on whatever
Which
medium
platform you listen on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But welcome back, John. I'm very happy to have you back. I loved our episode so much, and I'm so glad to have you here talking more Harry Potter. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing great. It's been fun listening to the whole podcast. I think I have like my favorites for even who's on your podcast right now. It's been great. I've been loving your podcast. The trivia questions, I'm like quizzing myself on my trivia for all the Harry Potter stuff. But I'm doing great. Love the opportunity to talk about Harry Potter more.
Fantastic. Yeah, something I said in the Best of Book 1 episode, I had 2 of my reoccurring guests on, Emily and Jesse, and I told them, I was like, I got you guys on here because, you guys outside of John love Harry Potter more than anybody else. However, I think John loves it even more than I do. So he is our king that we bow to.
That is high praise. It's high honor. Appreciate it.
Well, that's something I love so much about talking to you. And I've even had a few of the people who've listened to that episode mention it to me of hearing somebody who just loves this so much. It's so nice. And in every circle I'm in, I'm either like the biggest Harry Potter fan or like the most knowledgeable or whatever. And to talk to you is such a treat because I'm like, you bow to no one.
Wow, what a reference. Oh my gosh. That is too high of praise. I think it's just fun to obsess about stuff. So like this is one of my biggest obsessions, and I love when people talk about their obsessions like that. And I think it's just contagious when you talk about something that you love like that.
And it makes sense. I mean, you've podcasted through these books like 2 or 3 times already. Mm-hmm. So you've done all this before, so it makes sense. But anyway, let's get to it. So I don't think I told you your question to start off the episode, because the first time you were here, the way that we got to know you was your fandom ID, which I remember you said you were a Hufflepuff.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Your favorite movie was the 5th movie?
It changes every time.
No, it was the 4th movie. It was the 4th movie, I think.
My favorite movie was the 6th movie, actually.
Oh, frick. I keep going. No, I think it was this one.
Yeah. You got a 1 in 8 chance.
Yeah. And then what was your favorite book again?
Favorite book changes all the time. I think I said the 5th book. Or no, I think I said the 7th book. I said the 7th book on that one. I'd probably change that to saying the 5th book.
Okay. Yeah, I go back and forth between the 4th and the 6th right now. Just
they're so good.
But anyway, so this time for hosts who are on their second run, my question is, and I'm sorry, I'm just asking you. You have no heads up, but
no,
here it is.
I love this.
If you were to teach a class at Hogwarts, what class would you teach?
Well, I think I kind of know this. I think you asked Emily on this section. Yeah. This second question, and when you asked, I was like, oh, that is such a good question. I think this is a really, really tough one. I thought about this way more than I care to admit. I think the class that I would love teaching most, because I love plants and taking care of things, is herbology.
Really?
I would love that. And Neville's kind of one of my favorite characters as well. I think herbology would be one of the most fun classes to teach. Mm-hmm. The one that always gets me is the biggest disparity between, I think, the teacher versus the subject is history of magic. If they got a good teacher in that class, that could be the single greatest class that has ever been offered, not just at Hogwarts, but for all time.
Well, I thought about this, like just now as you were saying it, what would be cool is if you were to do that one, again, I don't know if it's a canonical spell or not, but that one spell that Newt Scamander uses to recreate the events with the powder, and you do that
so
for
much
a battle.
In that class.
That'd be sick.
Like imagine like a Lupin-like teacher for history of magic. How incredible that would be. Honestly, like a Professor Binns is like a good PhD level student. Like let him drone on for hours and hours. He has the experience, he has the knowledge in that stuff. But that class could be so good. Mm-hmm. So I'd probably teach that one too. I'd teach all of them.
Matter of fact, I kind of like charms too. It just keeps going.
Defense Against the Dark Arts is also a great one. I would love to do that. I think those are my 2 top ones though, herbology and history of magic.
I think, I don't know, the ones that I wouldn't really care much for, I guess might be, I think potions is right on that line.
Yeah, I was never good at chemistry, so I think it'd be fun, but I think that'd be a tough one. And you corrected me, but I can't remember which one it is. Astronomy or astrology? Astronomy or astrology.
Whichever.
Don't they offer both? I think it's astronomy. It's astronomy and Harry Potter.
That's right.
Then they offer another. What's the other star chart one? They offer another class.
Arithmancy.
Arithmancy. Yeah.
Well, there you go. So that's your welcome back question. So now
Thank you.
We're going to get into our Quizzitch section.
Oh yeah.
So I think at the moment I'm actually losing for season 2.
Wow.
So I ended up on a technicality winning season 1.
Thanks to me.
Well, in the best of episode that came out just this past Monday, so yesterday, behind the baseball here, Jessie asked me a question and she said I got a half point on it, but that gave me the win because it was all tied up. But anyway, I'm losing right now because my wife, who she did episode 1. She's not a big Harry Potter fan.
Okay.
But if she reads it, she's an English teacher. She writes books. She's crazy good at this stuff. Not a big Potter fan, but if she reads it one time, she's good. And she read the first 2 chapters. And by the end of it, like she was doing the thing that I do to guests of, well, do you need another question? Was that one too hard? Should I ask? I hate you so much. Stop it.
That's great. I love it.
Anyway, how many questions did you put down for this?
I got 2, but I can come up with more.
I had 4 just in case, but
all right, I'll come up with 4 because I can come up with 2.
Are you sure you want to do 4?
Yeah, of course.
I think quizzes is like most people's favorite part of the show anyway. So
yeah, it's so fun. I'm not that good at trivia, but I love it. It's just so much fun. I think it's fantastic.
All right, so I've got, I guess, because I gauge these now on like John level, and I think I have 2 John level questions.
Okay, I'm nervous.
And 2 regular ones.
Okay, start me off on the regular. I'll start you off on the regular, and then you start me off on the regular.
Okay. What is the name of the course that that the janitor Filch gets?
Quick spell.
Quick spell is correct. Ding, 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 ding.
That's a good one. Here's your easy question. Filch is excited to catch peas because he is destroying something, or he's messing with some object. What is that object?
A vanishing cabinet.
Nice. Ding, ding, ding.
I thought about like showing off and being like a green and black vanishing, because I think he said, I think the colors are even said what it is.
Well done.
So we each got 1 right. There we go so far.
All right.
Number 1, or I had it listed here. How about this? Name the 2 things that Ron cleans in the trophy room. Actually, name just one, and then the audience quizzes question later will be name the other one.
Ooh, okay.
So name one of the things he cleans.
One of the awards he cleans?
Yes. There's 2 awards that are mentioned specifically.
Yeah. It's an award for special services to the school.
That's correct.
That's
there
like the obvious one. I don't know what the other one would be, man.
I know. That's why I said 2, but I was sitting there thinking, shoot, if we're going to do all 4, I need to have the audience quizzes question ready. So there we go.
Okay, that's a good one. I'm curious when this comes out, what it's going to be. I'm going to look it up right after this.
I can tell you now and just edit it out.
Yeah, let me know.
It's okay, your question.
This is a little bit of a tougher one. Sir Nicholas gets hit with an axe how many times?
42. Oh, is that not right?
45?
Oh, rats. 45.
Wait. I every time you say something that's not my answer, sometimes I'm like, did I write that down wrong? Because
you're probably right. I just know it's 40 something.
I think it's 45 times in the neck with a blunt axe.
Yeah, that's probably. I mean, it's just at the beginning of Death Day Party. He says it.
45 times by a dull axe.
No. Okay. So
you're really
down. I'm 1 for 2. All right. Your third question. This is one of, all right, to me, this would be a hard level question. This is a John level question.
Okay.
Who is the leader of the Headless Hunt?
Ooh, that is a good question.
You can say any of his 3 names and I'll give it to you.
Dang it. I don't think I'm going to know this one. Is this one of those? I think this might be one of those that like when I see it, I'm going to be annoyed because I know this.
To me, it's one of those when I see it, I just read past it.
Really?
Hear a name to be forgotten.
I don't know this one. I'm not sure. I don't even have a guess.
It is Sir Patrick Bellamy Podmore.
Oh, okay. I could have gotten Podmore, but that's all.
Yeah, I would have thought Sir Patrick would have been the part.
Interesting.
That's all right.
Good
We both got 2 right? We both got one right.
One right. Yeah.
No. You got 2 right.
We both got 1 wrong.
Yeah, that's right. The last one then.
All right, here's yours. Hagrid says these words. You got to finish the sentence. If one word of it was true, I'll eat my blank.
If one word of it is true, I'll eat my... Because that is a funny line. If one word of it is true...
So they're in Hagrid's talking about the M word.
I'll eat my socks?
Close.
What is it?
No, not kind of kettle.
Kettle. Nope.
I'm coming up with the weird, obscure questions.
No.
Sorry,
I like it a lot. I like it a lot. This is good. I'll eat my cat. Yeah. Because I was remembering the hat in the first book saying I'll eat myself. And I was like, but Hagrid doesn't wear a hat. Okay. I'm 1 for 2. Oh no.
Okay.
All right. Your last question. Which chaser does Fred fall asleep on?
Alicia Spinet.
Alicia Spinet is correct.
Nice.
I was thinking when I was reading this chapter, I was like, I feel like she's the least mentioned
Yeah, I
of
think
the
she
three,
is.
you know, because when I read her name, I was like, you know what? I might not even have remembered her name if you asked me to name all of the chasers.
Yeah.
But
honestly, she's definitely the least known. She's been there for a while, but she's I think the least known.
Somewhat spoilery, but what is it? Her or Angelina that becomes captain?
Angelina becomes captain.
Gotcha.
And then Katie Bell is notoriously looked over when Harry becomes captain, because I think Katie Bell deserved to be captain in that book because she's been on the team for long. She's like an experienced chaser.
Mm-hmm.
She's like a good leader. But yeah, Alicia Spinet's very not on the page that much.
So very good. You got 3 correct.
All right.
I got 1 so far. I get 1 more question.
One more question. And this might be the toughest one. Professor Lockhart, when he came out during the Quidditch practice to kind of just sort things through and ease things over, it says he was wearing a specific color. What was that color? And I'll give you a hint. It was not his favorite color, which is
the forget-me-not blue.
Okay.
No, his favorite color is lilac. His favorite color is lilac.
Yeah. I think forget-me-not blue is what he
wears the
robes.
first time you see him.
Yeah, the first time you see him, he's wearing forget-me-not blue robes. This one is a different color. Very whimsical.
Yeah. I have 2 guesses. Am I allowed to say both of them?
I'll give you 2 guesses.
Okay.
This is a tough one.
The first one, periwinkle.
No.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And the second, lavender.
No. Cool. God, I feel like those are close.
Is it turquoise?
This was a gentle mauve or a mauve.
Mauve? Is that in this chapter?
Yeah, I think it's in the one of the first paragraphs in this one. He says he comes Gilderoy Lockhart wearing robes of palest mauve. Came out striding quick behind here.
Oh, when he comes out of Hagrid's hut. That's right. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Dang it. 1 to 3. What an awful showing this one was.
This is a rough trivia question. I'm curious if any of the viewers are going to be able to get any of these right.
Yeah,
these are obscure questions. I see a word and I'm like, all right, this will catch Barry up.
No, this is good. I'm glad that you brought the heat and retained your title. So there you go. So after all is said and done, the score as it currently stands is 6-7. I told you before that I was up 1. And after what happened this week, John really whooped me, and I am now down 1, 6-7. The guests have taken the lead. Alas, it could not be helped. Anyway, your question from last week was, what does Lockhart say his ideal birthday gift would be? And the answer to that was harmony between all magic and non-magic peoples. Aw, how sweet and thoughtful of the professor. Just forget about the part where he follows that up by saying he wouldn't say no to a bottle of Ogden's Old Fire Whiskey. Anyway, your question for this week, and you already heard it in this episode, we said it earlier, but Ron mentions 2 things specifically that he cleans in the trophy room. One of them was the award for special services to the school. What, dear listener, was the other award? Anyway, that's your question for this week. What's the other award that Ron mentions cleaning? If you want to submit your answers, you can do that by emailing me at theretoldpodcast@gmail.com, or you can message me on Instagram at theretoldpodcast. Anyway, back to the show. All right. Well, that's it. We did our opening, we did our Quizzitch, and now we're going to move on to our retelling of the chapter. For any new listeners out there, this is the way we sort of do things. We start off introducing the guest, we do our Quizzitch, and then we do a retelling of each chapter. And after each chapter, which is just a little recap, and after each retelling, we get into our favorite lines of the chapter. We get into some transfigurations, which are differences between the books and the movies, and then golden snitches, which are fun little lore grabs and little behind the scenes things the average fan might not know. And then at the very end of the episode, we have our restricted section where we talk spoiler stuff. And so we won't always avoid spoilers, but we try to, and we save it for that section at the end. So here we go. Let's get it rocking. My opening thoughts on this chapter was it's sad how much Harry was looking forward to his Saturday, only to have it systematically be ruined at every step of the way for this day.
Tragic. It's like you get through the whole entire school day and you have to wake up early, have a boring lecture from Wood about Quidditch trials.
One of your friends gets called a racial slur.
Yeah.
And then you go to detention.
Yeah.
All right. So here we go. Moving in. Let's see if I can read my own handwriting. All right. So after the mess of dealing with Lockhart and Colin Creevy, Harry is trying his best to avoid both. I like the part of the interactions between Colin and Harry. Oh, yeah. So nothing seemed to give Colin a bigger thrill than to say, all right, Harry, 6 or 7 times a day, and hear, hello, Colin, back. However exasperated Harry sounded when he said it. It's just his little buddy follow him around. Hedwig is still mad at Harry as well, and that makes me sad. Ron's wand gives Flitwick a boil in class, so he needs a new one for sure.
Right between the eyes, right? Isn't it like a boil on his forehead or something?
Yeah, like right in between the eyes, big green boil. Harry, like so many of us in school, just wants to make it to the weekend. And it's good to know that even at a wizarding school, that's still the same. It's like, I just want to get to the weekend. I just want to get... Poor Harry, if only he knew the Saturday he was in for.
I can imagine what they should do in the HBO show is they should do everybody working for the weekend. They should put that song over there, and then Harry gets woken up. Everybody working for, and he just has to go through this awful day. And then
just ruined. Harry just wants to go with his friends to see Hagrid, but Saturday rolls around and he's woken up very early by Oliver Wood telling him they need to go to practice. Harry's like, nobody's even practiced yet. And Wood's like, exactly. We're going to be the first. To be the best, you got to beat the best. Harry's still a very groggy boy, but he's like, all right. On the way down the stairs, he runs into his aforementioned bestest friend ever, Colin. Colin must have just been like waiting at his door, ear pressed to it, because he says, hey, I heard somebody say, hey, Harry, and had to run out here and show you this. It is sweet, though. He shows him his little picture that he took of him. And that picture is so daggum funny to me of it's Harry's portrait self trying to get out of the frame and Lockhart's pulling him back in. That's very fun. And then he's like, it says Lockhart gives up and just like pants leaning against the side of the picture frame. He asks Harry to sign it, and Harry's like, heck no. So anyway, as annoying as Colin is to Harry, I do like a lot of what happens here. First, like I said, the picture's hilarious. Second, Harry can't lose him because Colin is just like a little lap dog following him around everywhere. It makes me think of the little dog from Tom and Jerry following big old Spike around. He's asking all about Quidditch and just being one of those perpetual why kids. Why is that? Why? Asking him question after question about Quidditch. And Harry, what did I say? Like the line on 107. It says, and what are the other balls for? Colin asked, tripping down a couple of steps because he was gazing open mouth at Harry. Just, whoa. It's just so sweet. Yeah. And what did I say? I feel like I was this way as a kid with my dad. I could picture drives just sitting with my dad of like, so why do we think this? Why does this happen? Well, how do cars move? What's gas? Just over and over. John, I had a question for you. Have you ever had someone like this in your life?
Nothing to this like level of, admiration and love. I think my nieces and nephews might be one of the best examples of this, because it's kind of like the kid thing. Like, you love your parents, but there's like something kind of cool about the fun, cool uncle. And that's kind of what I am to them. So they, like, no matter like what happens, they think I'm like the coolest person ever. Like the car I drive, like when I pull up to the house and say hi to them, it's like they think I'm like the coolest. So that's the only thing. But this is like, that's like lovely. That's like familial. Yeah. That's like incredible. This is just something totally different. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I had one kid when I was in high school. At the high school I was at, it was middle school and high school together. Very small private school. And there was one kid when I was in 10th grade and he was in 7th or 8th. And he, in between the hallways, he just followed me around, talked to me all the time. I remember I ended up giving him all my Yu-Gi-Oh cards, which today I regret because I found out some of the cards I had are very expensive. I was like, dang, that's great. They say you never regret a good deed. I found that to be not true.
Yeah, definitely not true. Definitely not true. Yu-Gi-Oh cards, Pokemon cards, you kidding me?
But there was one time, the episode's too long, I'll cut this out, but there was one time, it was Valentine's Day, and I was going to ask the girl that I like to be my Valentine. And I get to school. I took one of the roses that my dad had put in the vase for my mother. So I took one of those. I was like, I'm on a mission. I'm going to go ask this girl. Get to school. And my little buddy comes up to me and he says, Barry, did you hear what, let's say Mike, we'll just say his name was Mike. Did you hear what Mike did? I said, no, what did Mike do? And he goes, come follow me. And he knew the girl that I liked and that I liked her. So he takes me to that girl's locker. At our school, we didn't have locks in our lockers. So useless name. Anyway, He opens up her locker, and Mike had put a crystal vase of roses in her locker with a note on it that said prom ?
No.
And my little buddy looks at me and he goes, Barry, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I said, what do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to ask her first. So I met her out on the sidewalk.
No way. That is a sly move. I love that.
What do you think? They think of all those shows where it's like, in Friends, when Chandler copies his wife's vows, and Ross is like, you can't do that. And Joey goes, if he goes first, he can.
That's a slick move on your part. I love that.
Good news, though, she did prefer to go with me over the other guy. But
love that.
Anyway, back to the podcast. Anyway, Colin leaves Harry to go to the stands, and they get to the Quidditch pitch, and Harry goes to the locker room. In the locker room, Wood drones on for a while about his brand new training program. He shows them board after board. We get a funny mention of Fred falling asleep on whose shoulder?
Alicia Spinet.
Ding, ding, ding.
It would have been kind of cute if he fell asleep on Angelina Johnson's shoulder.
Yeah, but what I liked, I thought the same thing. The thing I liked about this one is like, I chose camaraderie,
honestly, that is,
or maybe just with Fred, anybody can get it, what did I say? Oh, I give Wood an A for his enthusiasm and drive, but I give him a C for his bad ability. So I guess his disability of motivating his people, because it's
you can't read a room. Like, that's not how you run a practice.
Mm-hmm. You're the leader. You got great drive, great theories. I don't know why we call theories why we call plays theories, but you got to know how to speak to your people. Wood, you got to know.
It's funny too. When I was in college, I played soccer in college, and one of my coaches, my last 3 years, I had a coach who was terrible. None of us liked him at all, but he was like this. We'd start practice, and then we'd be like, running a drill. Mm-hmm. And then he would just stand up and just start giving us a lecture on tactics and what we needed to do in this instance. And all of us already knew this, but we all like unified. We all just tuned him out. We all would just sit down on the grass and just look up at the sky or pluck grass and pluck the daisies. And I'm like, this is just Wood right here. He just doesn't know how to read a room, doesn't know, if you're waking guys up in the morning, get them out, get them moving, get the blood flowing, and then you have this at lunch or something like that.
Yeah, that would have been smart. Even George says that. He's like, why did you not tell us all this yesterday when we were awake? And then the other thing I thought was crazy was the guilt trip he does on Harry when he's like, we should have won last year, but some unforeseen circumstances happened.
Which was and time out on that too, because there was an interesting note in the book about that, because I think the text says that they had to play a man down.
Yeah, that I can't get over that. Again, it's one of the inconsistencies of these books. However, I think the thing that's pointed out is, there's a year when Malfoy gets hurt. It's the next year, and so they move the Quidditch match. I guess the only defense you could give is that it's the last game of the season, so it couldn't be moved to a later. However, they couldn't find anybody to go after that snitch.
I know. Well, and this is the thing too, because this is what I think.
Have a secret, or have one of the catchers.
For sure.
What is it?
Well, that's what I think.
Chasers.
That's my guess of what they did. I think they would probably move this chaser around to be a seeker. Mm-hmm. Maybe they put Alicia Spinet out to be the seeker.
And that's why we never hear about her.
Exactly. Because she was not good and she failed. So Oliver Wood constantly berated her, and that's why she was never captain. That's why she never went anywhere. And
they get their worst loss in a century.
Yeah, tragic.
So anyway, I wrote it was funny that they call plays theories. The team finally goes outside to the pitch to fly. Hermione and Ron are there, and Ron is like, bruh, y'all still ain't done? And Harry says, we haven't even started. So off they go flying. I'm impressed that Fred can hear the clicking of the camera while they're flying around.
Supernatural hearing.
Yeah. I like when Fred says, who's that? And Harry just goes, no idea. And he just bounces out of there. Anyway, the Gryffindors get their party crashed as the Slytherins show up to the field. Wood's like, the heck y'all doing here? And Flint says, chill, bro. We got a special permission from Snape. We got a new seeker to train. And who's their new seeker? It's Malfoy. And I like how Fred doesn't even know who Malfoy is. You know, he's like, oh, you're or he talking about Draco. You're Malfoy's son, aren't you? Don't even know you. Anyway, we learned that Draco's dad hooked the whole Slytherin team up with new Nimbus 2001s, which are apparently better than the 2000s. Now, John, this is what bothers me as a question. Does it bother you at all, the naming of the brooms? Because it's the 90s. Why are these brooms called the 2000s and the 2001s? I know that. So it's like they were written during the 2000s, but still. I always thought that was odd.
I don't know. That's actually fantastic.
You're slightly older than me, just slightly. We don't know how much. It's amorphous. But it's fair to say you grew up in the 90s. Do you remember anything like this of them people calling something, oh, that's so 2000s?
Well, there was like 2000s mania. That's probably where I think she got it from. Like I remember everyone was kind of excited for the new millennia to come, and everyone was like obsessed with the year 2000. So maybe it was just because of that. Like there is a small obsession with it. Maybe even broom makers are kind of obsessed with that. Where this will be a great selling point. Yeah, honestly, like this broom isn't just 1987 or wherever it is. It's like this is the year 2000. We're like advanced for our broom making over here.
This is from the future.
Yeah, honestly,
we had to use a time turner to get this broom.
Honestly, the marketing on that could be great. Some of the best ads I could probably ever see.
So anyway, Hermione and Ron walk out to join the party. They say, what's the sitch? Malfoy starts to brag about the brooms, but Hermione hits him with such a good burn. This is one of the best burns that I think we don't focus on enough. She says, at least no one on the Gryffindor team had to buy their way in. They got in on pure talent. And this is one of the things that frustrates me when I read these books is there's a few times that Malfoy gets slapped with a good burn and it's just like swept under the rug. Like we don't focus on it enough. Like last book, I remember it's like Harry and Ron should have made fun of him for not showing up to the fight. Like you're a coward. In later books, there's other insults that he gets given. And I'm like, dang, we forget about those way too quickly.
Honestly, yeah.
So anyway,
Draco does get better at giving insults too. In the first few books, he's rough, but then.
Did you hear my dog just then?
Yeah. Is that a growl?
yeah, I don't know what it sounded like the noise he makes when I push him when he's asleep. He's like, leave me alone. Anyway, we get introduced to the M word and all crap breaks loose. So Harry's thought reminds me of the Johnny Bravo incident. Okay, I wrote this down. So let me read Harry's thought. Harry knew at once Malfoy had said something really bad because there was an instant uproar at his words. Now, Harry doesn't know what the word mudblood is and what it means, but he just knows that it's bad. And it reminds me, I was introduced to curse words when I was in first grade, and my older brother and I loved Johnny Bravo. And we would draw the pin abs on ourselves. And we would say like his line of, hey, baby, want to see my abs? And I remember we did that, and I go to school and I'm talking to my friends in the boys' bathroom, and I had drawn my pin abs on. I lift up my shirt and I said, hey, y'all, want to see my abs? And they thought I said the A word. And so they all flipped out and they run out of the bathroom. And I'm like, what just happened?
Ooh, we got in trouble.
Yeah, they tell the teacher. I get sent to the front office. I get yelled at. And my mom showed up, figured out what actually happened, and she laid into that teacher and that principal.
Nice. Love that.
Yeah, mom always had my back.
Well, mom defense.
But yeah, that's how I got introduced, because I was like, what was even the problem? What did I do? Anyway, Ron tries to curse Malfoy, keyword being tries. What follows next is the slug incident. And that's, Ron waves, or like it says, because Malfoy is behind Flint, and Ron sneaks in underneath Flint's arm to hit him with it. But unfortunately, his wand, because it's all broken and such, backfires and hits him instead. And they escort Ron to Hagrid's after this because he keeps throwing up slugs. And I always wondered why. Like Harry just goes, Hagrid will know what to do. Like why? Why do you think Hagrid will know it? I appreciate the trust in Hagrid, but still, I thought that was odd.
This is like seventh grader logic right here. Like, why not go to the nurse, who probably could like whip this up and like fix this instantaneously, and go to Hagrid?
Well, Harry was already saying he was looking forward to going to Hagrid's, and in his mind, he's probably just like, any excuse to get to where I want to go. I'm sure Hagrid knows what to do.
I don't care if Ron is blowing up slugs. I'm going to Hagrid's whether he likes it or not.
So as they head to Hagrid's, they do have to dodge and hide from Lockhart, who is wearing what color robes was it?
Gentle mauve, I think.
Gentle
or mauve.
Mauve. I never know how to say that word.
Yeah.
It's right here.
Palest mauve.
Palest mauve. Stupid mauve. So anyway, they have to dodge him as he's leaving Haggie's hut. At the same time, Lockhart is back on his crap, telling Hagrid how best to do his job. And I guess he's just doing this with all the teachers. You know, it started with Sprout, the previous chapters, and then now he's making his way to Hagrid and just telling him, "Yeah, you sure you could do it this way or this way?" And then anyway, they go in to see Hagrid. I like how chill Hagrid is about the slug incident. You know, it says there was a fire cracking merrily in one corner. Hagrid didn't seem perturbed by Ron's slug problem, which Harry hastily explained as he lowered Ron into a chair. "Better out than in," he said cheerfully, plunking a large copper basin in front of him. "Get them all up, Ron." And he's just like, chill, just, yeah. So Harry going, "Hagrid will know what to do." And Hagrid's like, "Yeah, take this bucket." It's just...
Yeah. But honestly, that's like probably the best thing you need. There's probably tons of panic in those three. And then all of a sudden you have this one guy who's not panicked at all. And he's like, "Oh, you just, throw it up. It's no big deal." And then probably sets his mind at ease a little bit. That's like huge, I think.
You know what? That's a great point of just some things you can just walk it off.
Yeah.
And something, calm down. Just don't run around and I like when he freaks out about the slugs getting on his pumpkins. He's like, "Hey,
for sure. Yeah,
calm down."
Yeah.
But anyway, before we get to that, they go see Hagrid. They talk some about Lockhart, and we learn that nobody else wanted the Defense Against the Dark Arts job. Hagrid asks who Ron was cursing, and they tell him what happened a few pages ago. And Hagrid is shocked by this. Ron then explains to us what a mudblood is, which is different from the movie, but we'll talk about that in Transfiguration section. Yeah, we'll get to it. I knew, like, as soon as I wrote that down, I was like, John's going to have something to say about this.
Oh my gosh, do I have something to say about that?
But mudblood is basically a really bad slur for someone who is muggle-born, has no magic parents, someone like Hermione, or me, if I'm actually a wizard and I just never got my letter.
Yep.
Makes me think of... oh, that's spoilery. I'll get to it later. But anyway, it's so difficult sometimes.
I know.
We get introduced to some of the blood purity issues in this world where, and Ron explains that there's some people who think that they're better than everybody else just because they come from wizarding blood. But I do it's one of the best Ron moments, I think, in this whole book where he kind of like just trashes that ideology. He says, "I mean, the rest of us know it doesn't really make a difference at all. Look at Neville Longbottom. He's pure blood, and he can hardly stand a cauldron the right way up."
I won't stand for this Neville slander. Come on.
Well, I know it's Neville slander, but it's with good intention.
Yeah.
It's
absolutely.
So, but I do find that funny. It's like even when Ron is saying one of the most comforting, I guess anti-racist things you can, he's still a jerk about it.
Yep.
So anyway. Really funny that Hagrid, an adult, is like, "Ron, I don't blame you at all for trying to curse him. Good on you." And then I wrote down, Harry had a funny thought. Oh, he says, "But maybe," this is Hagrid talking, "but maybe it was a good thing your wand backfired. Suspect Lucius Malfoy would have come marching up to your school if you'd cursed his son. At least you're not in trouble." Harry would have pointed out that trouble didn't come much worse than having slugs pouring out of your mouth, but he couldn't because Hagrid's treacle coffee had cemented his jaw together. But I just liked Harry's little sarcastic thought there of like, well, it honestly doesn't get much worse than what is going on. So
Hagrid's food too is such an interesting point in the books. Like nothing he makes is good. It's rock cakes. It's hard as rock. This treacle thing like cements his mouth shut.
He's just a strong. I wonder what that jawline looks like under that beard.
Yeah, I know for sure. That's why he's it's a chiseled jawline.
We need handsome Squidward Hagrid. Anyway, Hagrid's like, "I don't blame you at all." Oh, I do enjoy this moment where it says Harry can't open his teeth because he feels like they've been cemented shut because of Hagrid's food. But then Hagrid goes, "I have not," or no, he says, I got a bone to pick with you, Harry. I've heard you've been giving out signed photos. How come I haven't gotten one? Furious, Harry wrenched his teeth apart. I have not been giving out signed photos. I just love Hagrid taking the mickey out of Harry over this. Because it says he's just laughing.
He's so great in this chapter because he just like knows how to handle the situation. Knows how to joke with Harry in this situation, knows how to be calm under like pressure. He's so good at this chapter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite Hagrid chapters. It's one of my favorite Hagrid moments in the whole TV series. Ooh. You know? And whenever it showed the because, you know, he says that comforting line to Hermione of like, don't you think on it, Hermione. Don't you think on it one bit.
Very kind.
And they showed that scene in the reunion episode that they did on HBO, accompanied with Robbie Coltrane saying, like, I won't be around.
Yeah,
but Hagrid will be. I'm like, oh!
Everyone was weeping during that section.
Iconic. So anyway, I like this. Like, Hermione's a little freaked out about it, but really Hagrid just goes on saying Lockhart stinks. And Hagrid says, come look at my massive pumpkins that I definitely didn't use any magic on. And I like how Harry asks, what have you been feeding them? You know, when he looks at pumpkins, a plant. What have you been feeding them? We're also given a reminder that Hagrid has been expelled as a kid. Interesting. Something to remember.
Very interesting. I want to talk about that in spoilers a little bit.
And then, but Hagrid, I like the way Hagrid avoids the topic of his expulsion because it says, Harry had never found out why, any mention of the matter, and Hagrid would clear his throat loudly and become mysteriously deaf until the subject was changed. So 2 thoughts there. 1, I need to start doing that just when people question me. You know, I'm thinking of, I'm a youth pastor. And, you know, sometimes my students will ask me like difficult theological questions and, you know, and we all have those questions and it's tough to wrestle with. And I love that. I love apologetics. It's one of my favorite parts of my job. Love getting into that stuff. But I'm just imagining, what if instead of answering the questions, I just stared straight ahead, didn't recognize it. So anyway, in 2 Peter, just
probably
keeps
break
going.
the ice pretty well right there. That'd be pretty great. You can change the subject to whatever you want to talk about after.
I know, and then if you do it enough, people would just come to expect it. All right, you set a precedent. So anyway, we're also give a reminder. Hagrid mentions that he met Ginny. And he tells Harry that she might like a signed photo, if you know what I mean. Now they go back up to the castle. And I found an interesting word, hiccoughing, because, you know, it says Ron hiccoughing occasionally. And I was like, I know hiccuping and I know coughing. I've never heard hiccoughing. So I don't know if this is a weird British spelling that got into my English version or if she just came up with this word or if it's an actual word. But listeners, write into the retoldpodcast@gmail.com to let me know.
I wonder if that's like a reverse burp or something like that. Maybe it actually is something.
Hate that idea.
Yeah.
So they get back to the castle and they get the dreaded news of what their detentions are. Ron will have to help Filch clean the trophy room and Harry will have to help Lockhart answer fan mail. They both lament their lots and, you know, Harry's saying, please, can I just do it with any other teacher? And I picture McGonagall like cheekily smiling to herself of like, no, Harry, he asked specifically for you.
He wants you, buddy.
That afternoon, they head off to their detentions. I love Lockhart's greeting. You know, he says something like, he calls him a scalawag. And I'm like, bring back scalawag. This is my thing. I love Lockhart. He is so funny in these books. Oh. He's so funny.
He plays off as funny. I have a take that I think he is one of the actual darkest characters in this entire series.
He definitely is.
Hilarious. But he disguises that by his hilarity and like his whimsicalness.
He's like Vernon. He's like Vernon, you know. I
think he's significantly worse than Vernon.
Of course, and we'll get to that. But he's awful guy.
That's right. We gotta steer clear of spoilers here.
But yeah, just so funny to me. I think he's going to be my Vernon for this book. Like I was going crazy over him in the previous chapter when he's just talking like Harry.
That's one of the things I love him so much in this whole section. He's just so. Like he looks so harmless and he looks like just an idiot. You're just like
bumbling.
Yeah. You're like, why did this guy get a job? And they reveal, I think in the prior chapter or something like that like no one else wanted it. Like he was the only person that applied. So you're like, how did this guy even get this? he's the only one that wanted it, but he's like a complete fraud. Or you kind of think that he's a complete fraud. The whole text kind of leads you to believe
Harry
that.
and Ron already think that he is.
Yeah,
they've said it before.
Not Hermione. Hermione is willing to die on that hill.
She's
Those
sold on
luscious
him.
locks.
Yeah, it's just, what was it? One thing I find funny too is I've asked all my my female guests so far, like, do you find him attractive? Maybe movie version, do you find him attractive? And they have all said no. And I was like, you don't find Hercule Poirot attractive? What are you talking about?
Absolutely. That's why my parents are into that right now. They're like, oh, he's so good in that show. He's fantastic.
Really? Have you seen those movies?
No, I haven't.
Oh, they are so freaking good. I love them.
I gotta add them to the list.
But anyway, Harry gets the great honor of addressing the letters. They go on writing for 4 hours. Lockhart gives Harry some pretty solid advice, where he says, fame is a fickle friend, Harry.
Mm-hmm.
Celebrity is as celebrity does. Remember that. It's just like, I don't know. I feel like I've had moments in my life where I did not know what I was talking about. And somebody asked me for advice about something. And I was like, yeah, sure. You just do
Fame
this
is the
and
fickle
this.
friend.
You just come up with platitudes and just move on. All of a sudden, though, Harry hears a voice that isn't Lockhart's. We hear, I love this description. It was a voice to chill the bone marrow, a voice of breathtaking, ice-cold venom. Mm-hmm. Come to me. Let me rip you. Let me tear you. Let me kill you. One of the things as I'm doing this podcast that I think about when I get to these kinds of sections is I'm like, should I act it out? Should I do the let me rip you? And so, I love like you have a good voice for that. I've listened to it on your YouTube channel before of you getting into it it's funny. I think like in that orc one, I caught you going back and forth. Sometimes you didn't fully commit. And so sometimes you were kind of reading it and other ones you got hyped about it. But
well, it's actually interesting because when I moved on to Two Towers, the very first video I did for the Two Towers book, I was like, I want to do the voices like completely dramatized. And so I did that. And I asked people on the channel, I was like, if you want me to keep doing this, let me know. If you don't, just like, let me know too. Because up until that point for Fellowship of the Ring, I hadn't done any dramatized voices, but I would like slowly brush into that a little bit. And then some people were like, I loved it. It was so fun. And some people were like, no, I'm just not used to that. Don't ever do that again. So it sneaks out every once in a while. I like try to get excited and but it's
one of those things though that's like if you don't commit, if you do it just subtly, it's not good. It's very awkward.
Yes.
But I love it when you do it. So for the record, all of you people over on the YouTube page, YouTube members, the first timers, how dare you say it's not good?
I know.
Anyway, we all need Lockhart's confidence in his accomplishments. Because when Harry jumps, he thinks it's because of his book record. He goes, I know, it's really impressive. 6 months atop of the charts. And I don't think Lockhart got enough attention as a kid is what it all really boils down to.
Yeah,
he's like, it's like when you're like, mommy, look at what I'm doing. Look at what I'm doing. And mommy never looked.
Yeah.
And so now he's
all he wanted was praise.
Yeah. Now he's making everybody look. Anyway, Harry gets dismissed, goes back to the dorm and waits for Ron to show up before telling him everything that happened in detention. And they're both like, who knows? And that's the end of chapter 7. Yay.
Great
All right,
chapter.
moving on to our favorite lines. I don't really have a lot, honestly.
Yeah, honestly, both of these chapters, there's not like these incredible lines that happen.
And like next chapter, I think is one of the best chapters in the whole series.
Ooh,
But I got to the end of it and I was like, I have one favorite line.
Yeah.
Well, what the heck? And so I went back and I circled just a few more. Then I was like, all right, I'll make a little more of this one.
I think one of my favorite lines is one that you mentioned. At least no one on the Gryffindor team had to buy their way in, said Hermione sharply, thinking it an pure talent.
Yeah.
A smug look on Malfoy's face flickered. No one asked your opinion, you filthy little spat.
Yeah, though that was definitely one of my favorites too. Yeah. I also liked the whole section of the photograph with Harry and Lockhart.
Yeah.
A moving black and white Lockhart was tugging hard on an arm Harry recognized as his own. He was pleased to see that his photographic self was putting up a good fight and refusing to be dragged into view. As Harry watched, Lockhart gave up and slumped, panting against the white edge of the picture. Like that one a good bit. Did you have any others?
No, that was my only. I mean, like, yeah, if one word of it was true, I'll eat my kettle. Good line from Hagrid there. But not a ton.
Yeah, I'm of this. I felt bad. I was like, oh no, I don't have any.
Honestly, this is like, it's not a very great line-centric chapter, but I think one thing that this chapter does, which is spectacular, is it gives some of the best character assessments that you can have in a chapter. Like, it's not about Oliver Wood. It's like even basic characters. Oliver Wood, who like Malfoy is. The real colors of Malfoy come out. The real colors of Hagrid come out. The real colors of Harry come out. You really learn about Ron. Like, Ron, till this point, is a great friend, but he's a wealth of information in this chapter. It's like a lot of these characters' real, true colors come out in this chapter. I think it's fantastic.
And so let's get to that. Moving on to our Transfiguration section. So before we get to the Ron one, and for audience, this is differences that the movies made from the books. So things that are either omitted or changed. First big omission is the whole Quidditch practice is omitted. In the movie, they are stopped on their way to the Quidditch pitch by the Slytherins. All right, and now this is the only other Transfiguration I have. It's one of the most egregious ones. Yeah. They take all of Ron's lines away, and either Hermione or Hagrid says the lines in the chapter.
Yeah.
So basically,
it's tragic.
Yeah, and people talk about it a lot. Like, I'll just say this for more clarification. In the movie, Ron is just the comedic relief part of throwing up the slugs into the barrel, and Harry's like, "What does mudblood mean? I don't even know what mudblood means." And Hagrid and Hermione basically explain what it means to everybody. Did you have any thoughts on this?
I have so many thoughts. I'll synthesize it. I think this is one of this is the biggest change in the movie that I think degrades the quality of the movie. Like the start of it, like the movies build on each other. So like if something doesn't happen in one section, you get screwed on another one because of it. So like this is the earliest on sin that you have of the characterization of Ron. They did a good job before that. Like even in the first movie, Ron's character was contributing to the group. He was like very important. They had a good characterization of Ron. This is that moment where it kind of all falls apart. Where the movies just were like, okay, Ron's going to be the comedic relief. Because like even in the books, this is so important because Ron becomes a source of information for Harry in the wizarding world. And one of my favorite moments is in book 4, where Ron doesn't know about the Dark Mark. And all of a sudden you have this kid who's the source of all information for like the wizarding world and wizarding culture. And even he doesn't know what the Dark Mark is. Even he doesn't know what this like terrible stuff is because his parents kept this information from him. So that
shows how awful that stuff is.
Yeah, it makes that stuff so much significantly worse than you do, and that the impression that you get in the movies. So this is like the biggest sin for the character Ron, and it frustrates me.
I like how you phrased that, because the way I had conceptualized it was, well, I put it in the positive of like, well, I guess since that's the way they were going to go with the character, it makes sense. But also, what a crappy way to go with the character.
Yeah, for sure.
Of like, because it truly makes no sense for Hermione to be the one to give this knowledge. It makes sense for her to also be ignorant. I even like when she goes, yeah, I'm not sure what they said. I just know it was kind of like, she's not terribly offended by it. She goes, I just know that I should have been. Like, I know that it was wrong.
And logically, it doesn't make sense, because if she, like, how is she learning this stuff? She learns it from books. What books is she reading? That's this stuff.
Listen,
flat out there.
I grew up in the South. All right, we scrubbed a lot of those things from our children's books. That is not in there. So yeah, that is fascinating. Like, I like that take on it. And yes, it is a sad one, because I love hearing these takes from Ron throughout the books. Yeah, there's several different moments where he's the one explaining, and it's just a bummer, because they take away his source of like information and like his real agency in this the movies. I still love the movies; they're incredible. Movies, absolutely. But anyway, that's it for my Transfiguration section. Moving on to our golden snitches, which are little lore tidbits and grabs. Honestly, I don't have a lot for this one either. I have kind of two. The first one is wizard photography, because it's mentioned that like we get to see I think it was mentioned before where in a previous chapter where Colin says, if I develop it in the right film, or develop the film in the right potion, it will move. But there is a section on like the Harry Potter website that talks about this, of wizard photographs and wizard portraits essentially being the same thing, that if the person who is the subject of the photograph, spends more time with the photograph, it becomes even more like you.
Which I love,
the photograph isn't you, but it like has some certain qualities of you imbued in it through the potion, through magic, and through the person making the portrait or the photo.
I think they mentioned like each headmaster was not like required, but they were encouraged to spend at least 5 minutes a day with their portrait or something like that.
Yeah, and it really brings them to life more.
Yeah.
So that's really all I have to say about it, because there's more I want to say on it in a later chapter from a different book.
Mm-hmm.
But moving on, the only other golden snitch I had was just there are two women who are mentioned as regards to seeing or sending Lockhart fan mail and getting fan mail back. It was Gladys Gudgeon and Veronica Smethly, and one of them comes back. All right?
No way, really?
One of them comes back, and that'll be in the restricted section if you guys want to know that.
I'm excited for that because I don't remember that.
So anyway, moving on to chapter 8, the Death Day Party. My opening thoughts, goated chapter.
It's a great one.
Goated. It is the most memorable chapter from this book. I love it. It was really funny when I meant to say this to you before we started recording, but I was like, when I was scheduling who was going to be in for what chapters in book 2, you know, you were one of the first people I asked, and these were the chapters you asked for. And I thought, whenever I finally looked up what those chapters were, I was like, oh, that makes so much. I bet he definitely was like, which one's the Death Day Party? That's what I want.
Yep. Both of these chapters are fantastic. They're such good chapters. But yeah, the Death Day Party is, I think, the most memorable one in this book for sure, and is probably the best written one in this book.
Yeah, it's iconic. I love it so much, and it's crazy that it's not in the movie.
Yeah, it's
crazy.
It is a criminal offense.
It's October. Tons of people are needing Madame Pomfrey's Pepper Up Potion. Try saying that 5 times fast.
Yep.
Hogwarts is a vibe. I wrote down. It said, raindrops the size of bullets thundered on the castle windows for days on end. The lake rose, the flower beds turned into muddy streams, and Hagrid's pumpkins swelled to the size of garden sheds. First of all, that's sick that they're that huge.
Yeah,
later, it's mentioned that at the actual feast, 3 grown men could fit inside of the pumpkin, like they've been hollowed out. But I regularly, for like my work time, half the time I work from home, for my work time, for study time, whatever, I throw up this on my YouTube on the big TV, the smart TV, of Hogwarts Thunderstorm or Hogwarts Legacy Rainy Walkthrough. Like that's what I want. So this is awesome. Hagrid's pumpkin, I said they huge. But in spite of the rain, Harry is still trying hard at Quidditch because Wood's not letting up on the gas. One day, he comes into the castle just drenched to the skin and all muddy. He runs into a very preoccupied, nearly headless Nick, who is complaining about a ½ inch is keeping him from greatness. What are you talking about, Nick? That's what I want to know. What you talking about? Harry asks the same question. Nick, what you mean ½ inch?
Excuse me?
We learn that Nick has been wanting to join the Headless Hunt and he is mortified, wink, wink, that he can't. He reads his ghost letter of exclusion. Also, how do ghosts send letters? That's what I want to know. That's my question for the chapter. In all fairness, though, I feel like the Hunt makes a good point. Saying, because they mention the activities that they do involve removing their heads and doing something with them.
Yep.
So I'm sorry, Nick, but I have to agree.
Same
with the Headless Hunt.
You gotta have standards somewhere. You can't just let people.
If we just start letting you in, we gotta let. Anyway, their conversation is cut short by Mrs. Norris, who meows at Harry, and Nick says, "You'd better get out of here before mean old Filch finds you." Well, too bad. Filch finds him anyway, and he is ticked off to see Harry all muddy, which is fair. He's like, Harry goes, "Just a bit of mud," and Filch goes, "A bit of mud to you, but it's an extra hour of cleaning for me."
And I think you've mentioned this before in a previous podcast. Poor guy, having to everyone is doing magic around him, and all of a sudden this guy can't do magic, and he has an hour extra of work when Dumbledore could come up and just go, Scourgify and just clean everything up immediately. It's cool.
I'm great Dumbledore defender, great Dumbledore apologist. He goofs on this one.
Yeah.
The only thing that I could think is maybe Filch has some hidden unknown secret that would make him dangerous to anywhere else outside the sky. I don't know.
That's why I think you mentioned before and on the other podcast too, which is the fan theory that he is a
poltergeist.
The antithesis of Peeves, which I think is probably valid.
Yeah, it's a cool theory. I like that one a lot.
Yeah.
So off they go to Filch's office. I like how it says that, since Harry had to march back, it doubled the mess in the hallway. It said it doubled the muddy footprints. So 2 things to note about Filch's office. One, I really like these. Fred and George have their own drawer of
it's incredible.
He takes notes of all the ne'er-do-wells and the delinquents. And so Fred and George have their own drawer of all their sins. And then the chains and manacles are also there too. So Filch always talks about, I want to hang people up by their toes in the dungeon. And he could actually, he's got those. But again, props to Dumbledore. It says that Dumbledore's not letting him do it.
Yeah.
So anyway, Filch begins to write Harry up. I want to know what the Great Sizzling Dragon Bogies is about, because he mentions a list of all the things that he's seen. And I'm wondering, what happened with some Great Sizzling Dragon Bogies? What happened there?
Remember in, I think it was book 6 when Harry had to re-record records? He had to re-record records of his father. I'm like, this would be the most fun job, re-recording records of all the of Filch's stuff. Just sitting there and reading these stories of his reports of these terrible pranks. You have so many ideas. I'm sure Fred and George broke in there multiple times just to get ideas from this guy.
I thought you were gonna say broke into change things up, but I like that more. They broke in to be like, we need a new idea. What else can we do? It's it makes me think of. Oh no, that's not right. Anyway, I was gonna say that in the first book, wasn't it Mrs. Weasley who gave them the toilet idea? And they were like, we weren't even thinking about that. Yeah, seeing a toilet back would be funny.
It was something like that. Yeah.
So anyway, Filch begins to write Harry up. He starts to write his suggested punishment, but is interrupted by Peeves making a big old ruckus upstairs. And when it comes to Peeves, Filch doesn't have eyes for anybody else. He is just off. So off he goes. And John, what do you think the punishment he was going to prescribe for Harry was going to be? Or what do you think it should be?
It's a great question. I think detentions in Hogwarts are wild. For what they're actually able to do. There has to be some kind of more prescribed way of detentions. Lines are maybe boring, but maybe that's the best way to do it. Putting someone in the teacher services are insane, because we've talked about this in the first book. Mm-hmm. How insane was Harry's first detention in that book? That was
just absurd.
But this one,
Filch seems to go for all punishment, no service.
It's
nothing to help somebody, but he wants you to feel pain.
Yeah.
So,
which speaks a lot to that dude. He's a weird dude.
You know what? He should work around children.
Yeah, right.
So
lots of strange hires this year at Hogwarts. You learn more about Filch. You learned about Lockhart. Why are they hiring these people?
Harry, good boy that he is, stays put when Filch leaves. However, bad boy that he is, does some snooping. Mm-hmm. So he sees a letter in fancy writing on Filch's desk, and he wants to check it out. He reads it, and it is for a product called Quick Spell. And essentially, it's a product that can help you if you stink at magic. And it's really funny because it reads a lot like a low-T ad.
Yeah, it really does, yeah.
There's a testimonial. Where is it? There's 2 testimonials mentioned. I'll read the second one. Warlock DJ, professor of Didsbury, says, my wife used to sneer at my feeble charms, but 1 month into our fabulous Quick Spell course, course, and I succeeded into turning her into a yak. Thank you, Quick Spell. I love that.
It's a great line.
Very odd advertisement. Anyway, Filch comes back, and Harry is a little sloppy and hiding what he's done. And Filch, kind of funny about this. He's like, you didn't read that, but if you did, but you didn't, right? But if you did, it wasn't me. It's for a friend, of course. But he tells Harry to leave. He's so flustered by all this. So off Harry goes, and he runs into Nick again, who is like, "You're welcome, bro." Told Harry, or told Peeves to do all that. That's all me. And Harry says thanks, and then he falls victim to one of all of our greatest fears. He says he wishes there was something he could do for Nick about the headless hunt and all. And Nick is like, bro. There is. And that's one of those worst moments when you're talking to somebody like, hey, man, if I could do anything for you, let me know. Yeah. Send me a message. I'm there. Now that you mention it. Oh, I wish you said any other day. I could have done it any other day. That's crazy.
Dude, I wish I could have done that. Just I have, I have Quidditch practice that day.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I need to go now. So what is it, Nick? What can I help you with? You could come to my death day party. And then like Harry's response where he says, "Oh," said Harry, not sure whether he should look sorry or happy about this. When Nick says it's his 500th death day. He's like, "Oh, all right. Yes, no, bad thing, good thing." Anyway.
Momentous occasion.
Nick is all hype about it. Harry tells Ron and Hermione, and they both have very different reactions. Ron's like, "Who would want to go to that?" And Hermione goes, "I bet hardly anybody alive has been to one of those."
Yeah.
So day of the party, which is Halloween, we always got to have an incident on Halloween in every single book. Harry's like me when it finally comes to carrying out plans. It says he regrets that he ever made them. Like when the time I make so many plans and my friends listen to this podcast. Guys, I love you so much. And I don't want to cancel our plans. I make them with the best of intentions. I'm always like, it's going to be so great. We're going to connect. All right. We're going to have fellowship and bonding, brohood, friendhood, camaraderie, all this stuff. And then when the day actually shows up and there's an option for like somebody goes, "Oh, I can't make it." I'm always like, "Man, that's all right. Don't even worry about it. I'm going to be just fine." So anyway,
I'll just watch Harry Potter in my room and just cozy up in the bed.
I got to take notes. All right. Yeah. It takes a while to take notes on these chapters. So anyway, they pass the fun Great Hall party and head to the dungeons. It does look cool. Don't know why I said it. The dungeons do look cool. And I don't know why they're not more hype about it. Where did I write it down, or where is it in the book? The passageway leading to nearly headless Nick's party had been lined with candles too, though the effect was far from cheerful. These were long, thin, jet black tapers, all burning bright blue, casting a dim, ghostly light even over their own living faces. The temperature dropped every step they took. As Harry shivered and drew his robes tightly around him, he heard what sounded like 1,000 fingernails scraping an enormous blackboard. That's pretty sick.
They got some good ghost interior decorators over there.
That's right. I want to know, who they had move things around, who took care of this.
There's definitely a ghost Martha Stewart hanging out over there, just being like, "Okay, we're gonna get the candles up. These are gonna look great. It's gonna get colder every step."
The HGTV of ghosts. Yeah. They passed the Great Hall, and there's music. I do like the music because Ron goes, "Is that music?" Nick, like a good host, is there to greet them at the door. All right. And he ushers them into the party. The party's pretty lit too. It says it was an incredible sight. The dungeon was full of hundreds of pearly white translucent people, mostly drifting around a crowded dance floor, waltzing to the dreadful quavering sound of 30 musical saws played by an orchestra on a raised black draped platform. A chandelier overhead blazed midnight blue with 1,000 more black candles. Their breath rose in mist before them. I was combining breath and mist. All right. That's how that happened. This is a family-friendly podcast. Anyway, it sounds pretty sick. All right. The entrance was dope. The inside was dope, as we've already highlighted this. So anyway, they spot Moaning Myrtle, some ghost who haunts a toilet. And Hermione is like, "We got to move. I do not want to talk to her." They check out the food table. John, anything at the food table interest you?
Just some stinky salmon.
Some stinky salmon, all moldy. I love the ghost who lowers himself, opens his mouth and flies through. I've seen so many.
You could taste it.
I've seen a lot of good fan art of that ghost. Really? Just a huge wide mouth just flying through the table, trying to get a taste. And Hermione speculates that the moldier the food is, the stronger it tastes, which makes sense. So hopefully the ghost can taste it somewhat.
Yeah.
They move away from the table, but are stopped by Peeves. And Peeves is really just a kind guy. All right. He's like Lockhart. He's misunderstood. He offers them nibbles. All right. He lifts up his moldy little peanuts. He says, "Nibbles?" And they're like, "No, we're good." And then get this, sweet guy that he is, he tries to reconcile Hermione and Myrtle. All right. He's just too kind, wanting them to bond. Not really, though. He calls Myrtle over and he gives her a terrible time. He tells her Hermione was talking trash about her, and Hermione has to lie and be like, no, all good things, for sure. I'm saying none of them are good things. I like the scene where she elbows both the boys. It's like both boys are standing next to her, and it says she elbows both of them like, yeah, you know I was saying good things, right? And the flow here.
Side note, have you seen did you ever see Cursed Child?
No, but I know what happens for the most part.
Okay. They have a depiction of Myrtle in that is wild. She's like,
in a good way or bad way?
In a hilarious way. She's like the comedic relief of it, but
okay.
it is so funny, so over the top. She moans a lot more than she does in the movies. It's wild.
It's like something they would do in a Puffs play or something.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it really is.
The thing I dislike so much about Moaning Myrtle is the bathrooms at Universal in Orlando. Have you been there?
No.
So if you go to the bathrooms in the Wizarding World, whether it's the men's room or the women's room, you hear her. Like she is talking and like doing her little laugh and junk and like just.
I would be able to pee. I'd have like stage fright.
That's what I'm saying. She's just going on and on. And I'm like, this is really creepy hearing a child's voice, a female child's voice, little girl talk while I'm trying to use the restroom.
Yeah, it's not good.
So anyway, I wrote the flow here on 135 is just really funny writing. So nobody has my copy, but 135, here it is. Don't lie to me, Myrtle gasped, tears now flooding down her face, while Peeves chuckled happily over her shoulder. Do you think I don't know what people call me behind my back? Fat Myrtle, ugly Myrtle, miserable, moaning, moping Myrtle. You've forgotten Pimply, Peeves hissed in her ear. Moaning Myrtle burst into anguished sobs and fled from the dungeon. Peeves shot after her, pelting her with moldy peanuts. Pimply, Pimply. Oh dear, said Hermione sadly. Nearly headless Nick now drifted toward them through the crowd. Enjoying yourselves? Oh, yes, they lied. I just loved everything about that. It was just bam, bam, funny moments.
Great description of this chapter.
And then a horn blasts and the headless hunt rolls up in style. We meet Sir Patrick. He's a cool-looking ghost who carries his head under his arm. That's pretty sick.
Yeah,
he gives Nick some... What'd you say?
Dope. That's like a great entrance right there.
I don't know. And it mentions his beard. Flowing from the head under his arm.
There's a scene in Mulan that I think one of the characters carries their head under their arm or something like that. One of the ancestors.
I'm thinking of the second Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah,
the guy gets his head knocked off and he's like stroking his chin underneath his arm.
Great reference.
So horn blasted, Hunt shows up. Sir Patrick gives Nick some grief about not being headless. You know, he's like, oh, still hanging in there, you know. He does see straight through Harry's lie, because I like when Harry goes, actually, after Nick looks at him, I think Nick is rather terrifying. And he says, and I love it in the audiobook, the way that Jim Dale does it of, ha, I bet he told you to say that. Yeah. This guy sounds fun to me, not gonna lie. However, we get Nick's, I wrote birthday speech. It's his death day speech, Barry. You should have written that. And this part does make me sad. This is one of the saddest moments to me in the whole book, the whole series, because the huntsman just ruined his birthday party by being super funny and cool.
Yeah.
And it's just so sad because it's like, it's a sad thing that at your own party, people don't care about you.
Yeah,
and I
overshadowed.
hate that for him.
I know.
Anyway, the trio doesn't like it either, and they get out of there. Moving through the halls, they're moving through the halls when Harry hears the evil voice again. You know, the rip, tear, kill. See, I can commit.
Good. I love that. Nicely done. Voice acting is on the horizon.
Thank you. I'll make fully dramatized versions of the podcast for the Patreon. Everybody sign up.
Please.
Anyway, there's no Patreon. Ron and Hermione are like, "What's up?" But Harry says, "Shut up and follow me," and he runs off. They sprint from corridor to corridor. Ron and Hermione are confused. Harry just shouts, "Someone's gonna die!" So thanks, Harry. That clears things up for him. They get to the final corridor, and they see in big old letters written on the wall, "The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air, beware." Now, I noticed, too, because this is one of those moments where, like, in a book, it shows you exactly what's on the wall. And so it's, you know, in all caps, somebody wrote this. And I thought about that takes much longer time to handwrite, and especially foot-long letters in all caps. The other day at youth group, my students made fun of me because my handwriting is atrocious. They even made a tier list of which letters of mine were the worst. But they go, Barry, you do have good handwriting with your capitals. And so
just go to all caps.
Well, the next week I wrote in all caps, and I never did it again because it takes so dadgum long to write full sentences in all caps.
Twice as long as anything else. You need a lot of blood to write this, too.
That's what I'm saying. Somebody went to a lot of effort to put this up there. Somebody. Anyway, they see something hanging on the wall, and they get a little closer. They're like, what's that? And they are horrified to see that it's Mrs. Norris hanging from her tail, stiff as a board. Ron is the only one with some sense here, because Harry goes, should we help? And Ron's like, nah, bro, we do not want to be here right now. That's crazy. Let's go. But it's too late for that. The feast has let out, and everyone comes walking into the hallway, and there our heroes stand in a very unfortunate situation. Also, Draco says some racist stuff, and that's the end of the chapter.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's the end of chapter 8, the Death Day Party. So, favorite lines. Do you have any? I only have one.
The only line that I have is nearly headless Nicks. You think that getting hit 45 times in the neck with a blunt axe would qualify you to join the headless hunt?
But no.
Poor guy. I feel so bad for him.
My line that I liked, I just thought that was cool. So when Harry is chasing the voice, like when he hears it, he says, a mixture of fear and excitement gripped him, and he stared at the dark ceiling. How could it be moving upward? Was it a phantom to whom stone ceilings didn't matter? But just that first part, a mixture of fear and excitement gripped him. Like, what a cool, and like I know what she means when she writes that, of like, this is terrifying, but also
I'm curious.
Yeah. It's really, really good. I understood what was meant there with something that doesn't sound reasonable. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, that's all of our favorite lines. Again, not too many, but still great chapter. Like we said, probably the best chapter in the whole freaking book.
Yeah, I think it's the best written chapter in the whole book for sure.
Mm-hmm. Moving on to our Transfigurations, differences between books and the movie. So, first of all, really this whole chapter.
Yeah, everything.
As we said.
All of it.
Yeah, this chapter is not included in the movie, like except the ending of it when they run into when they see everybody, except even that's a little bit different, but I'll get to that. So there's no run-in with Professor, not Professor, why do I keep saying that? There's no run-in with Janitor Filch at the beginning. What's the other word for Janet? Custodian? Yeah, with Custodian Filch. Well, they give him a title in the book. I'm trying to remember. The caretaker.
Caretaker, yeah, he's caretaker.
There's no run-in with Filch at the beginning. So all that stuff with Peeves doesn't happen. There's no Death Day party. Harry, so the thing they changed, they kind of combined the ending of the last chapter with the ending of this chapter. So in the movie, when Harry leaves Lockhart's detention, that's when he meets up with Hermione and Ron, and then they see Mrs. Norris hanging on the wall. But in the book, it's at the end of each chapter, Harry leaves Lockhart, nothing happens. And then here, when he leaves the Death Day, and he's already with Ron and Hermione, they run into Mrs. Norris. So anyway, that's all I got for Transfigurations. And then moving on to our Golden Snitch section. Thankfully, I got a little bit more for this time around.
Nice, love it.
So the first one, I actually have them all pulled up here. I didn't write them down. So the first one is the Headless Hunt. All right, we get a mention of the Headless Hunt. The Headless Hunt was an organization of decapitated ghosts that played headless games, such as head polo. They were headed by Sir Patrick Delaney Podmore. The organization only accepted those whose heads had been completely severed from their bodies. The Headless Hunt.
I feel like there's a larger population of headless ghosts than there is not. I feel like, why is there so many headless? When you get beheaded, maybe you have a greater likelihood of becoming a ghost. Why is there a whole group of ghosts that are beheaded?
Of like, I feel like there should even be more though, because that was a pretty popular way of
honestly, it's kind of true actually.
The Headless Hunt participated in head-intensive events such as horseback head juggling, headless bowling, and head polo. So there you go. There's your little fun facts about the headless hunt. Also, Nick's death had a note of this. The book made mention of it, that it was October 31st, 1492.
Mhm.
All right. Columbus sailed the ocean blue. But he had nothing to do with that. Sir Nicholas, do you know how he died? Like why he was being punished?
I knew this somewhere. I forgot it. Was it he? Yeah, what was it?
He inadvertently caused the teeth of a noblewoman to grow to the size of tusks with a misfiring spell. His penalty was beheading, but the execution was botched, leaving the head attached by only a small amount of skin and sinew. Sir Nicholas died, but became a ghost rather than moving on. The near beheading would torment Sir Nicholas for centuries.
You know, I kind of wish they had in give me a Lord of the Rings section. You know, when he releases the Green Army, there should be a section where someone can come back and decapitate his head. Nicholas is on the hunt for the ghost that he, that grew the teeth of the tusk on, and this person can just cut that extra little bit of skin.
He needs Anduril, the Flame of the West. That's what he needs.
Darn right, yeah.
So that's the only sword that could do it, at least according to the movie. But let's see. Then we have Quick Spell. And so there was a funny note about Quick Spell that I thought. So Quick Spell is mentioned here. Quick Spell was a correspondence course in beginner's magic run by the Quick Spell Company. It was designed to help adult witches and wizards brush up on their magical skills. Lesson 1 of this course taught the student the correct way to hold their wand, as well as the Scourge charm. It also came with a book. And then Quick Spell's introduction letter include apparent testimonials from people who were said to have poor magical skills but been helped by the course. It isn't known if these testimonies were genuine. However, regardless of the course's effectiveness, people like Argus Filch and another person that I won't say because it's spoilery, can get no results as they have no magical power. All right. So it's not for squibs. All right. We'll talk more about that next week. Yep. But it's for people who are just trash at magic. Yeah. So poor Filchy. And then one more, and then we'll get to our restricted section. The Death Day Party. Have you played Hogwarts Legacy? Mm-hmm. It's in Hogwarts Legacy, the Death Day Party.
Didn't even see that.
So if you sneak around, if you explore the dungeons, there is a giant room in the dungeons where a Death Day Party is taking place. Where ghosts are flying around. You see a bunch of the stuff described here. Moldy food on the table, ghosts dancing. That's awesome. Yeah, it's really, really cool. So if you play Hogwarts Legacy, or you can just YouTube it, look it up.
They need to come out with a FIFA version of Hogwarts Legacy. Every year they come out with a new version, Hogwarts Legacy 21, 22, 23, 24.
I know the big complaint people had about it was, at least my biggest complaint is, once you finish the story, there's no changing the seasons. Yeah. So it's you get to it and it's man, I want to go back to wintry Hogwarts, but I'm stuck forever in the summer. So anyway, and that's all I got for Golden Snitches. Can you think of anything else to talk about before we get to restricted section?
The biggest thing in this chapter, and this is one of the questions that I have for you too, because I think about this question all the time. And this is where this my whole point on this filters in. But if you could change one thing, if you could add one small little detail to any of the books, just to help the story out, or you just want this added to any of the books, what would you add? It might take a while to think of that, but I'm curious what other people would say for that too. It's one of my favorite questions to ask, because one of the things that I would change, but reading this chapter or reading both of these chapters, it changes my answer a little bit. But I always said that I would have loved for the Weasleys to have a squib child. Maybe their oldest child is a squib child. Because I think it would have been really interesting to see how the wizarding world, how a loving family treats a squib, and how, and what even though this is a very, very negative thing seen in the wizarding world, is there potential for this person to integrate into wizarding society? And to do it seamlessly, other than Filch, who just is miserable all the time. I would love to see if this guy had a job in the town, that Fred and George, they met this hot chick in one of the later books and the towns that they were going after.
Yeah.
But I always like this idea, but I think this changes the meaning too of these two chapters, because I think one of the biggest things of these two chapters is the idea of prejudice. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really interesting because in the 7th chapter, Ron lambasts someone for using the M word. And then in this chapter, he's making fun of Filch for being a squib. So it's like these prejudices are so embedded in Ron, that he like thinks one word is terrible, but he's okay with making fun of Filch. I mean, Filch is like easy fodder to make fun of.
Well, that is true, but it's like, it is like what's true of humans as far as the inconsistencies in them. Because, you know, we see it that's why it's brilliant. Yeah, and we see it with Hagrid too, of like him getting, like being upset that people judge him for being half giant, but then he goes on to judge foreigners. You know,
that's why I love it, because it's realistic. But if you gave like the Weasleys, like the oldest sibling is a squib, Ron wouldn't have this like understanding of it, which is why I like that it's not in there, because it shows that Ron is inconsistent in his views. He makes fun of one thing but not the other, as like every human does. Like every human has blind spots like that, which is why I think it's so good.
You know, they do have a cousin who's an accountant.
That's true. It's true. Very curious about that guy.
That's a great question. I'm sitting here trying to think. I feel like if I could change or add to, I mean, I can't. That's a tough question. Yeah, I'm trying to think of even funny things right now, and nothing's coming to my head. Of like all I can.
It's one of those. Yeah, you can't come up with a quick answer to that one. That one's like one you have to like think about through the whole series, or like think about on a read and be like, oh, this would have been fun if this was added.
Mm-hmm. I mean, certainly I would like for more characters to be more reoccurring or be around more.
Agreed. Yeah. Like one person that I asked said they wanted Luna to be introduced earlier on in the series, even if she was just like a background character, even if someone was like, oh, you know, that's Luna Lovegood over there. She's like, you know, kooky Luna. Just like if you're a few mentions here or there.
Yeah, like because Jenny talks about that she's friends with Luna. Yeah. You know, and that being there. I think I would have liked to, I know in this book especially, seen Jenny more.
Absolutely.
As things go on. But other than that, I'll keep thinking and I'll get back to you on it.
Deal.
Fantastic. So before we move on to restricted section, our Chamber of Secrets for this book. All right. We just want to say thank you, everybody, for listening. For those who don't want to hear spoilers, thank you for being here. You know, next week we'll be back with chapters, chapters 9 and 10. So looking forward to that. And John, could you talk about your YouTube and podcast too real quick?
Yeah. So, I mean, Barry knows me from Harry Potter. I had a podcast called Harry Potter and the First Time Readers, where I went through it with my two friends who had never read it for the first time. And now we are doing Lord of the Rings, but I have never read Lord of the Rings. So I am just writing a ton about it and just making a bunch of video essays. YouTube channel is First Timers. And so if you want to find me on that, you can go vicariously live through me, who is reading it for the first time.
Yeah, what a perfect fandom to do what you're doing it for. Yeah. Because Lord of the Rings fans are such nerds.
They want to chat about everything. Stuff. It's so much fun. So when John puts out video essays almost like for every chapter, not even every chapter, like every thought in these chapters. Every thought that I'm having. I was doing it for every chapter, and then all of a sudden it became like, there's so much here that I just want to make I'll slow down a ton and just talk about everything.
Yeah, so very good stuff. So check that out if you got the time, and links for all that will be in the description for this episode. So anyway, we're moving on to our restricted section. All right, so enemies of the air, beware. This is the Chamber of Secrets. Get on out of here. All right, you got to speak parcel tongue to get in here. You know what I'm saying? Anyway. We just talk in like S's the whole time. It's just 10 minutes of that.
We need a translator,
I just put up a little subtitles for all of our hissing. So anyway, restricted section stuff. I got a list, but is there anything you wanted to talk about first?
You start your list and I'll just feed off of it.
The first thing I thought about was at the very beginning of the first chapter we talked about, very beginning of chapter 7, it mentions that Oliver Wood was a 6th year. So, you know, right when you see him, burly 6th year boy. And in the first book, when you meet him, it said burly 5th year boy. And I thought, I wonder if like she had it planned from the beginning for him in his 7th year to finally win the cup, because it's not till next book that they actually do win the Quidditch Cup. And so I'd never thought about that before, but it's like, interesting that she did make clear note. So there's some characters, it doesn't say their year. And I bet there's probably some in there that their years got changed or something.
Agreed. Yeah, McGonagall shuffling around all the things
Oh,
so that she
yeah.
can build a great Quidditch team.
I thought you were saying highlighting the fact that like McGonagall's age changed dramatically with
Well, it did,
Fantastic Beasts.
Yeah. Yep.
The other one I had was, we hear about the Defense Against the Dark Arts jinx. All right, on the position of people not wanting to take the post. And so again, just wondering at this time, did she think that there was an actual curse on it, or was this just a funny thing she used? But later we do learn that Voldemort did put a curse on the position. And I've always wondered, what does that mean? How does one curse a position? Of course the answer is just magic. But like, what? I wonder what you have to conceptualize and do in order for that to be.
Well, something that I always find interesting is I don't know all the details and the ins and outs of this, but I know that she, not confused, but she was going back and forth between book 6 and book 2 for how much she was going to include in book 6, in book 2. Like I think book 6 was initially going to be all the memories. Book 2 was initially going to be a lot of the memories. And then book 6 was going to be them going into the Chamber of Secrets to get that Horcrux. But
dude, what a change that would have been.
I know, seriously. But I think I just love that because it shows how much she was planning ahead. Like a lot of people like make fun of this, be like, oh, she was just like flying by the seat of her pants. I'm like, I think she planned most of this stuff out really well.
I do believe that because in a lot of the podcasts I listen to, Harry Potter podcasts, they make jokes about it and you can laugh about it and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm one of the people that legit thinks, as a person, I know a few authors and I'm like, no, they do think about this stuff a lot in advance.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I think so as well. We also get hints at Ginny, all right, being something up with her. The first one mentioning where Hagrid says
pepper up potion down her throat.
Yeah, so she's not looking well, she's looking pale, and so Percy's giving her that right away, but also her going around Hagrid's hut.
Yeah. Looking for Harry. Quotes.
Yeah. But I think it's later revealed in the book, and it's a deleted scene in the movie. Hagrid's chickens are being killed. Like all his chickens are being killed because apparently the cry of the chicken is what's fatal to the basilisk.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the blood was. It's chicken blood.
It was chicken blood, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of chickens to murder, though.
Oh, so many chickens, especially in all caps. So you mentioned this earlier. We see Riddle's trophy in the mentioned earlier where Ron has to clean his awards trophy for awards for services to the school. I want to know, why did they keep that? And people always bring this up, but why did you hold on to that? You literally have Adolf Hitler's trophy sitting in the freaking trophy room at this school.
That's it. That's a fascinating question. And I am 100% a believer in there's no plot holes in Harry Potter, that everything should be explained by fans. I think that's something like Dumbledore probably kept and Dumbledore's a weird figure in this because he wants, he's very secretive himself, but at the same time, he wants people to know Tom Riddle. He wants people to use his actual name, like Voldemort, at least, very least. And he knows Voldemort's secrets. So maybe he's keeping it here as a little thing saying I know your secrets and I'm keeping this displayed. I know your real name. And even though most of the students don't really know who it is, maybe you shouldn't have it displayed in a trophy case, but maybe I don't know.
It could also be to the case of, and when we see this earlier, nobody knew that Tom Riddle became Voldemort. Very few,
sure.
That wasn't public knowledge. So if people were to see that name, especially now where this story is taking place in that year, people are it's just another name on another trophy in the trophy room, which the trophy room is also in Hogwarts Legacy. I just remember that. You can go and check that out. And that's
I remember seeing that. That was cool.
And then let me see if I have this correct. So Harry sneaking, snooping around in Filch's office makes me think of how he does that anytime he gets the chance. With the pensieve in book 4, or not just book 4, but with Snape's memories too, of anytime a teacher leaves him alone in a classroom, he's going to get into trouble. He's going to slip. Harry is such a good person. Yeah. He's he loves helping people, saving people. He's kind. He's self-aware and all this stuff. And he's reflective. But he's a curious boy. He's gonna search around if you leave him alone. Okay, this is my last one for the restricted section. I mentioned that that Gladys Gudgeon comes back.
Yeah.
She comes back in book 5, where Professor Lockhart, when he's in the psych ward at the
No way.
at
St. Mungo's?
at St. Mungo's Hospital for Magical Maladies and Injuries, he says, and I quote, "I am not forgotten, you know. I still receive a very great deal of fan mail. Gladys Gudgeons writes weekly.
No
I just wish I knew why."
That's so great.
So she does bring that name back, and she is
I love that.
still writing to Lockhart to this day.
Yeah, she's got a big crush still. I love that. I love. There's 2 other things. I mean, we mentioned this before, but the Vanishing Cabinet is a great little, like, not spoiler, but like a little tidbit.
I was like, is that the same Vanishing Cabinet, or is it a different one? I don't know. That thought crossed my mind too. The Vanishing Cabinet that is used in the 6th book for everybody thinking about it.
This is something that I still remember. This is my first time read of when I saw this guy. I was just so curious about him on my first time read. Like, it still went over my head, but I remember having like deep curiosity about like, how did this guy die? Was the Baron?
The Bloody Baron?
Bloody Baron, like, because it mentions him in this chapter, like he had, like, you know, these wounds almost like in his chest or something like that. So I like how even right here, there's like this backstory behind him that it just kind of hints at, but you just don't know where it's getting at yet until like the last, or the 7th book, when all of a sudden it gets revealed like what he did and how involved he was in this Ravenclaw plot. And I'm like, it's great. You're even mentioning it right here. You're giving little hints of it.
Yeah, just little background things of that eventually come to a greater importance. But he's a terrifying figure, and I like his story. You know, you hate the guy obviously, but it is a fascinating story.
Yeah, for real.
So anyway, that's really all I got for the restricted section for our Chamber of Secrets. Anything else?
That's all I got.
Well, fantastic. That's a wrap, everybody. We're finishing up. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being here you survived the basilisk. You were not killed. You made it out of the restricted section. Good job. Hop up on your Phoenix and go. It's just like magic. All right, everybody. Goodbye.
Later.
Where's the stop button? There it is. Thank you for listening to Retold. Artwork for this podcast was created by Rachel Ortlip. Music was created by Taylor Jarvis. And the Retold podcast is produced by me. That's right. I made this.